Well, the House of Commons is a quiet place right now. The fall sitting is officially over. MPs heading back to their ridings for the holiday break. And much has been accomplished, but there is still much work left undone. That includes the provinces and Ottawa stuck in a stalemate over healthcare. And with that, let's bring in our political observers. Susan Smith is principal with the Blue Sky Strategy Group. Kate Harrison is vice chair with Summa Strategies. And Kim Wright is principal for Wright Strategies. Nice to see all three of you.
Hello.
Susan, I'll get you to start us off because here we have the provinces. They want Ottawa to invest more in healthcare. They want reliable and predictable funding. Now, I spoke with the Premier of New Brunswick, and he, like other provincial leaders, he says they want a meeting with Justin Trudeau directly. Now, Trudeau seems to say the ball is in the Premier's court. So what more is he looking for? If there is this desire amongst premiers already expressed, what's he waiting for?
Well, I think what's important to understand in this particular case on the healthcare issue, Michael, is that the health ministers have agreed on what needs to be done. They've agreed that there should be more investment in recruitment and retention and foreign credential recognition for nurses and doctors. They've agreed on data sharing, but the premiers have said to their ministers, no, don't be talking about that publicly. We want to battle this out, premier to prime minister. And so I think there's politics at play here, really quite significantly and a bit to the detriment of the healthcare system at the moment. The premiers are looking for a 35%, in their terms of 35%, contribution, no strings attached. The feds already give the province, they cover about 38% through a combination of cash and tax transfer points. So it's how the math is being done on either side and the fact that the premiers just want a blank check. And I think in this day and age, you can't just hand over a blank check. You have to show what those improvements will be. That's where I think the impasse is.
Kate, what's your take on this? Because I wonder if you understand where Ottawa's coming from. Here you have the provinces, for the most part, in surplus. In fact, they're giving out checks in Alberta and Quebec. Is it disingenuous of the provinces to say that they need more money for healthcare?
I don't know that it's disingenuous, but I do think that it's not a holistic look at the problem. Of course, if you're the federal government right now, you don't want to be anywhere near the healthcare file. It is a complete mess. From their perspective, it's provincial jurisdiction, and they want the premiers, particularly conservative premiers, to wear just how bad the situation is in provinces like Ontario and elsewhere in the prairies, et cetera. So from Ottawa's perspective, you don't want to be near that conversation. But from the Premier's perspective, this is very much a mutual responsibility and a shared responsibility. As Susan mentioned, the foreign credentialing, recruitment, retention, those are all supported by the federal government. There's other things the federal government can be doing right now, working to speed up, for example, the ability of pharmacists to prescribe to make simple prescriptions. So this is very much an area where they need to be working together. I don't think it's too much to ask the man who is in meeting all days for a meeting with the country's provincial leaders to discuss such an important issue.
Now, Kim, Jagmeet Singh says he's ready to pull support for the Liberal government if there's no movement on healthcare. How serious is that threat, or is really this a case of crying wolf?
It's not a case of crying wolf at all. In fact, Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats have been very clear on this confidence and supply agreement that it is an ongoing discussion, an ongoing dialogue between the parties, between party leadership, to make sure that the priorities of Canadians, including healthcare, are actually being lived up to. And viewers will often hear me say, show me your budget and I'll show you your values. If we truly value healthcare in this country, and we recognize coming out of the pandemic some of the colossal failures and visions within within the federation on how each province deals with healthcare, we know that there has been a starving of a system in some instances, and there needs to be a recalibration in others. So this is a priority, and what New Democrats have always said has been that healthcare, the delivery of publicly accessible healthcare across the country, is a top priority, always has been, always will be, and that's what we're here to fight for.
Susan, what do you make of Mr. Singh's threat? Do you think the deal is in danger?
I don't think it's in immediate danger, but that Mr. Singh has to do that. He can't look like he's too close to the Liberals ever, or he loses his validity or his value as the leader of a separate party. So he worked with the Liberals, and dental care got passed this semester or this term. I think that's an excellent a huge win for both the Liberals and the NDP. Mr. Singh can say, hey, I contributed to that, but he doesn't want to look too close. And Kim's right. It was always part of the deal or the terms at the beginning was that they would support the government on matters of confidence and supply. That's money and things like the throne speech and the budget, et cetera, but that they would disagree. So I am not surprised that Mr. Singh would disagree. He needs to carve out his own space. He needs to make sure the closer we get to the end of this minority government, that he does occupy his own space and that people can make a distinction between Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh. And the more, as the way things go with this current parliament as it sits, it very much looks like it will be a decision between the Liberals and the Conservatives in the next election. Those are the two sides of the aisle distinctly for people. So Mr. Singh is fighting for his spot.
Kate, what do you make of his words that he would pull support if there was not more healthcare dollars?
Yeah, let's be real about who's in control of the supply arrangement. It is the Liberals, and it is Justin Trudeau. Certainly, they are the ones that are going to control when we go to the next election. I think the NDP, of course, have a lot of work to do in terms of their ground game, in terms of fundraising. We saw that play out in a relatively poor performance from the NDP this past week in the by-election in Mississauga. So the Liberals are holding the cards here. This is very much about posturing on the part of the NDP. He's right to do it because contrast wins campaigns, but I wouldn't be looking at this and saying that this is a sign that the agreement is up in the air. I think very much it's here to stay until Justin Trudeau says that it's not.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the by-election in Mississauga Lakeshore. I want to also talk about that as well, because here we have the former Ontario Finance Minister Charles Sousa winning that vote, that by-election. Kim, the Tories did not really move the bar, even with Poilievre in leadership. Kate might be talking about the NDP in that riding, but the Conservatives didn't really move the bar. What does that tell you about Tory hopes of trying to take seats in the rich area of GTA in any election?
Yeah, Kate and the Conservatives want to talk about, New Democrats being sidelined. And I appreciate that, because what we saw out of this is that Pierre Poilievre might have been able to handily win the Conservative leadership vote. But when it comes to Gen Pop, to the voters, to Conservative and potential Conservative voters, they are just not having this. And in fact, the Conservatives' vote went down from almost winning in the last general election under Aaron O'Toole to getting less than half of their vote to show up this time. That should cause for concern for the Poilievre team. Can they show up? They've had key organizers on the ground in Mississauga Lakeshore all the way through, and it just didn't translate. In fact, Mr. Poilievre tried to stay away from it, as he has done with mainstream media. He's now staying away from voters. It does cause for concern, and it should, and Conservatives I have talked to are rightly questioning what they've gotten themselves into. It was the criticism of Mr. Poilievre going into the leadership. It's great to get people to sign up those memberships, but can you deliver them to the ballot box when it counts? And it looks like absolutely not. So if this had been an Aaron O'Toole by-election, Mr. Poilievre would have been the first one sharpening the knives. So I have some questions about some Conservative conversations over the holidays.
Susan, what do you make of the result in Mississauga Lakeshore?
Well, it was Charles Sousa is a very strong candidate. He was a provincial finance minister in Ontario, well known and a household name. So congratulations to him on winning the seat with over 50% of the vote. That's what you want to look at. Look, by-elections usually are unfavorable to sitting governments. So the fact that Mr. Sousa won in largely a Liberal-friendly riding, but won handily and with a larger margin than the last federal election, is something that I think the Conservatives should be thinking about. I think the 905 is going to be a real battle in the next election. Pierre Poilievre is going to have to show moderate Canadians that he's not the pugilist that he has prided himself on being. And he's always said he's not going to change. So that may leave him a bit or a lot behind in the 905 region. The next election will be very interesting. One by-election does not a federal election make. But I think Mr. Sousa won handily. People said in that riding, definitely said no thank you to Pierre Poilievre and his kind of politics. And the Conservatives need to read those tea leaves and see if they need to pivot and adjust. I'm not sure Poilievre can or will, because he's so dug in on, I don't want to talk to the media. And maybe he doesn't want to talk to people who aren't asking him the exact questions he wants to either. He's a bubble boy. So he's going to have to change that if he wants to win the country.
Mm-hmm. Kate, any lessons for the Tories here?
I think so. I'm not sure that it will be a total strategic overhaul because, to Susan's point, there was a lot of dynamics in this particular by-election that were not going in the Conservatives' favor. But that's not an excuse. The party performed much better in 2021, a 20-point differential. I don't think anybody's patting themselves on the back over that over at party headquarters. So there should be some considerations given about what might need to change. I think that the real lesson to be learned here is going back to what worked for Stephen Harper's government, Jason Kenney when he was Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, and that is building authentic and genuine relationships with Canadians from multicultural backgrounds. That is an absolute must. The party has now hired somebody to take that on and coordinate outreach. And so I think many Conservatives are hoping for a much better performance in subsequent by-elections and in the GTA writ large, heading into whenever the next election should be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm going to correct myself as well. I said rich GTA. I should have meant seat-rich GTA. I'm just told I made that trip. So seat-rich GTA. Listen, Susan, talking about Charles Sousa, though, as you said, he did win. It does raise the specter of a potential cabinet shuffle, or else Mr. Sousa would have to really be content to sit in the backbenches. What do you say to that?
I don't think anything's been promised to Charles Sousa. There have been people who've been in cabinet, highly capable people who have yet to make the front benches of cabinet. So I think the Prime Minister will have to think long and hard about the deep talent pool that now includes Mr. Sousa as he contemplates a shuffle. I fully expect a shuffle in the new year. There will be people who are who are retiring, not running again. The Prime Minister will want to shake things up. Will Charles Sousa be in the mix? I think absolutely they'll be looking at him, but it wouldn't shock me if he wasn't in the mix for the next shuffle this time around. We'll see. Like I said, deep bench, great talent pool for the Prime Minister to draw from. Lots of regional, gender, ethnic balance to contend with. Cabinet making is not fun, I don't think, for people. So we'll see what the outcome is.
Mm-hmm. Kate, what are you watching out for here?
Yeah, well, there could be a bit of a caucus management issue that accompanies a cabinet shuffle. There have been a lot of people waiting for a long time, and maybe because they're not from the part of a country that's maybe overrepresented in cabinet, they're not getting their fair shake. So if you allow Charles Sousa into cabinet without in some way recognizing the many other people that have been waiting for their opportunity, you might have more and more caucus members start to express some disappointment and displeasure at that. So I think it's a very likely possibility for a shuffle. One's been rumored for a while. A lot of ministers have had to do some hard work in portfolios that I think they're not particularly fond of, and they're looking for a change. And that could be an opportunity for Sousa to come in, but it should be an opportunity for some others that have been waiting patiently for their turn as well.
Yeah. And Kim, what are you looking at here?
Well, then there's the additional layer of the Ontario Liberal Party leadership, and there are a couple of folks who are senior Liberals in Ontario who are looking to maybe take a shift to provincial politics. You know, you would look at people like Nate Erskine-Smith, we look at people like Yasser Naqvi, and others within the Ontario Liberal caucus who have been testing the waters, shall we speak. So those will be also things beyond the retirements and the long in the tooth nature of this federal government that the Prime Minister is going to have to look at. And, you know, Chrystia Freeland cannot continue to be essentially the minister of everything when you've got some other folks who would like some rewards as well.
Okay, well, listen, before you three go, let's talk about Jim Carr, of course, passing away this week. Meant a lot to many people on the Hill. Susan, any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. He was a lovely man, and my condolences go to his family and to his caucus colleagues. I met him while he was still a candidate. He had a real presence, a real warmth. He really was working for the interests of all Canadians. I spoke to my friend Phil Fontaine, who knows Jim, of course, as a fellow Manitoban, and he said, you know, Jim called me my brother, and I called him my brother. And to me, that's testimony to Jim Carr's commitment to listening, learning, and making life better for as many people as he could in his career of public service. So I'm very sorry for his loss.
Kate?
Yeah, not much more to add than what Susan said, but what I think is really respectable about Jim, he was a true parliamentarian. He wasn't overly partisan. He was willing to work with others, and he came to politics from a pretty different background, a musical background, a business background, and in looking at what you want in a politician, you wanted to be a representative of the Canadian people, and I think he was that person for many in Manitoba. And so condolences to his family and to his colleagues. We did lose a good parliamentarian this week.
Mm-hmm. Kim?
Absolutely. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the rough and tumble of question period and partisan bickering and, you know, these types of panels that seem to the audience to look a bit more rough and tumble than, you know, how much people become friends outside of these situations. And Jim Carr really embodied that spirit with his parliamentary colleagues, with staff, with just people across Canada. And I certainly my condolences to his friends, his family, but hopefully his legacy is that the next generation of politicians and parliamentarians look to folks like Jim Carr as a guiding light of how you should do in politics. Lovely
words. Thank you to the three of you for all of that, including that tribute. Susan, Kate, and Kim, thank you. Have a great holiday break. We'll see you in the new year.
Thanks, Michael.
Sounds great.
You too.
Thank you.